All right, everyone get ready because today we're going deep into something pretty fascinating, the world of animal training and how it connects to human interactions.
Oh, yeah. It's more connected than you might think.
It is, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're diving into Amy Sutherland's book, What Shamu Taught Me About Life, and we're going to try to uncover how those techniques that are used to train animals could actually help us in our everyday relationships.
You know, it's so interesting what happened with Sutherland. When she went to that exotic animal training school, she just thought she was going to get a quick article out of it.
Just a simple story, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, these universal principles that she was seeing started to resonate with her own experiences, especially in her marriage.
So she's learning about, hyenas and baboons and even killer whales. And she's like, wait a minute, this is kind of like how I deal with my spouse and my coworkers and even my kids.
Absolutely. And, the core of her book, it's really all about taking these principles of progressive animal training, you know, which focuses on positive reinforcement instead of punishment,
Right.
and applying them to human relationships. And what's really wild is that these techniques, while they seem counterintuitive, can be so effective.
Okay, so I'm thinking like, instead of yelling at someone to do something, you're finding ways to reward them when they actually do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty different from how most of us are used to handling things.
It is. But the idea is that by zeroing in on the positive,
Mhm.
you're actually encouraging that behavior that you want to see more of. And
Oh,
it doesn't have to be like you're giving out literal treats or anything,
right.
but it's about acknowledging and rewarding any behavior,
Okay,
whether it's a kind word or a helpful gesture,
right.
or even just a quiet moment.
Got it.
That just brings a more positive vibe to the whole thing.
So I'm curious, how does this play out like in a real life
Well,
scenario?
Sutherland gives this great example of dealing with a grumpy postal worker.
Okay.
Instead of reacting to his negativity,
Okay.
she kept it cool, address the problem with her package and finish the transaction as if nothing had happened.
So no eye rolls, no sighs, no sarcastic remark.
Nope, just pure neutrality.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is the postal worker actually chilled out and they resolved everything without any drama.
Cool.
And what this shows us is that there's power in not feeding into the unwanted behavior,
Right.
in not giving it the attention that it often craves.
It's funny because we're so conditioned to react,
Oh, yeah.
to try to control things that we forget just how powerful it can be to just let things be.
I know. And this connects to one of the big ideas in progressive animal training that it's never the animal's fault,
Okay.
which really encourages us to shift away from pointing fingers and towards trying to understand the reasons behind certain behaviors.
Yeah, I can see how that could be applied to how we deal with each other. We're
Ah,
so quick to jump to conclusions about what people are thinking without really understanding their perspective or the reasons why they do the things they do.
it's about recognizing that everyone is coming from their own unique set of experiences and motivations.
Okay.
And when we go into interactions with that understanding, it can totally change the dynamic.
So we're focusing on the positive understanding motivations, not blaming. Are there any other big ideas that we should keep in mind?
What another important principle is knowing your species, which means understanding the natural instincts and tendencies of the person you're interacting with.
So you wouldn't try to train a fish to climb a tree, or
Right.
like in human terms, expecting someone to act in a way that totally goes against their personality or tendencies.
Exactly. And Sutherland uses this hilarious example of trying to train a raccoon to stop washing his food before eating it.
Oh my gosh.
Raccoons have this incredibly strong urge to wash their food,
Right.
and the trainers were basically fighting a losing battle trying to get him to go against his nature.
Yeah, you can't change their instincts. So it seems like understanding this in human interactions could prevent a lot of frustration and conflict. If we accept that people have certain ingrained behaviors, we can learn to work with them instead of trying to fight them.
That's the idea. And that brings us to another key concept, setting your animal for success.
Okay.
And this is about creating environments and situations that really set them up to succeed.
So that might be like choosing the right time and place to have a tough conversation or understanding that someone might need a bit of extra help to reach a certain goal.
Precisely. It's about realizing that everyone has different needs and ways of learning.
Right.
And by tailoring our approach to those needs,
Okay.
we can create an environment that's good for growth and positive change.
This is so insightful. So we talked about some key principles that we can apply to a lot of different relationships, but I'm curious, how did Sutherland actually use these techniques in her own life?
Well, one of the areas where she saw the biggest changes was in her marriage. Yeah, and she shares these really funny and surprisingly heartwarming stories about how she applied animal training techniques to navigate the ups and downs of being married.
Okay, this is where I'm getting really interested.
Yeah.
So after the, wait, we don't do breaks during deep dives, right?
No, we like to keep things moving here.
Okay, good to know. So let's jump right into Sutherland's experiences. Tell me more about how she used these techniques with her husband. What kind of situations did she apply them to?
Okay, so one classic example is her husband, Scott,
Okay.
and his habit of leaving his bike clothes all over the floor.
Oh, I know that one.
Instead of nagging him, which she admits she used to do,
Uh-huh.
she started using the principles of positive reinforcement.
Okay, so instead of focusing on the clothes on the floor, she started noticing and acknowledging when he did put them away.
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah.
And the results were pretty incredible.
Really?
Yeah, stick with us, because after just kidding, we're going to jump right into those results and explore other amazing examples of how Sutherland used animal training to improve her relationship with Scott.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so Scott's leaving his bike clothes everywhere, and instead of nagging, starts focusing on when he actually puts them away. Did that really work?
It did. She noticed that by just acknowledging those moments, even if it was just like one sock making it to the hamper, Scott started putting his clothes away more and more.
Wow.
It's like he was subconsciously responding to that positive reinforcement.
That's so cool, but I'm wondering, did it work for like bigger issues too? Because
Yeah.
bike clothes seem kind of small.
Oh, she definitely used these techniques for more challenging things. Like she talks about using what trainers call the least reinforcing scenario, or LRS,
Okay.
to deal with Scott's occasional temper tantrums.
The LRS, remind me what that is again and how it works with, a frustrated human instead of a misbehaving animal.
Right. So the LRS is all about briefly ignoring unwanted behavior
Okay.
in a certain situation. So with Sutherland, it wasn't about ignoring Scott completely,
Right.
but more about staying calm and neutral when he was losing his temper.
So instead of reacting and maybe making things worse, she just didn't engage with the negativity. I can see how that might work with an animal, but I'm not sure I could do that with my spouse.
It definitely takes practice and self-control.
Yeah.
But Sutherland discovered that by not giving Scott the reaction he was probably used to, his outbursts actually became less frequent and less intense over time.
That's pretty amazing. So it's like by changing how we react, we can actually influence how people around us behave. It's not about control, but about understanding how our own responses contribute to the whole dynamic.
You got it. And that's a core idea in progressive animal training, recognizing that our behavior plays a part in shaping the behavior of others.
Yeah.
But it's not just about ignoring what we don't want. It's also about actively encouraging the behavior we do want to see.
Right. We talked about that earlier with positive reinforcement. Are there any other techniques that trainers use that we could try in our own lives?
There's this cool concept called variable reinforcement,
Okay.
which is all about the power of unpredictable rewards. Think about slot machines in a casino. The reason they're so addictive is that you never know when you're going to hit the jackpot.
So you're saying that a little bit of uncertainty can actually be good?
In this case, yes, because when we know a reward is coming every single time, it can lead to complacency.
Oh, okay.
But if the reward is unpredictable, it keeps us on our toes and motivated.
So it's not about spoiling someone with constant praise or rewards, but about strategically changing things up to keep them interested and putting in the effort. But wouldn't that be kind of hard to do in real life? How do you know when to give a reward and when not to?
It does require some awareness and observation,
Okay.
but the key is to pay attention to what motivates the person
Right.
and use that to your advantage. And remember, variable reinforcement can also keep those unwanted behaviors going if we're not
Right.
careful.
Oh, like what?
Think about when you might give in to someone's nagging or tantrum just to get some peace. Even though you think you're stopping the bad behavior in that moment.
Right.
You're actually reinforcing it because they learned that if they keep it up, they'll eventually get what they want.
That's so true. It's like we're accidentally training people to be more annoying by giving in. So we need to be mindful of not just what we're rewarding, but also what we might be accidentally reinforcing.
Absolutely. But let's take a step back for a sec. I know we've been talking a lot about marriage.
Yeah.
But one of the things I find so fascinating about Sutherland's book is that these ideas aren't just for romantic relationships.
Okay.
She uses them in all sorts of interactions, from dealing with difficult coworkers to raising kids.
Okay, that's where I'm really interested to hear more. Let's move past the marriage thing and explore how these techniques can be used in other parts of our lives.
Yeah.
Let's start with work. How can thinking like an animal trainer help us deal with those sometimes tricky relationships at work? Okay, so we're at work now using these animal training ideas. It's a little weird to think about. But how would I use these techniques with, say, a coworker who's always late to meetings?
Well, you got to think about what might be causing that behavior. Are they just trying to be disrespectful? Or is it maybe more about bad time management or even feeling overwhelmed?
So, first, I need to take a step back and try to understand why they're doing it instead of jumping to conclusions or blaming them. But then, why don't I just let it slide?
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
but instead of lecturing them about being on time, which probably won't work, try something a bit more subtle.
Hmm.
Like start by acknowledging and praising them when they actually are on time.
Oh, okay.
Even if it's just once, you could say something like, hey, thanks for being on time today. I really appreciate it.
So it's about using that positive reinforcement to encourage the behavior I want to see more of. But what about those trickier situations where someone's always interrupting or taking over conversations?
That's the perfect time to try out that LRS we talked about.
Oh, right.
Instead of getting into a power struggle or trying to talk over them, you can just pause, stay quiet, and let them finish their thought,
Mm,
then calmly steer the conversation back to where it was.
interesting. So you're not giving their disruptive behavior any attention. You're just letting it fade away on its own. Wouldn't that be a little awkward?
It can be, but the key is to do it without any judgment or annoyance. Just a neutral response that kind of says, this isn't really helpful. And then by bringing the conversation back, you're showing that you value everyone's input and want to make a space where everyone can be heard.
I'm starting to see all the ways we might be accidentally rewarding behaviors we don't actually like, and it seems like these techniques could be really helpful with parenting.
Definitely. Sutherland has a whole chapter about how these principles can be used to raise children. It's really interesting.
I bet a lot of traditional parenting is about punishment and control, but this seems like a totally different way of thinking.
It is. Instead of always telling a kid what not to do, you're focusing on what you want them to do, and then rewarding those good behaviors. You might break down big tasks into smaller steps, celebrating those small wins to keep them motivated.
Hmm.
And of course, that idea of variable reinforcement comes into play here too.
So instead of giving predictable rewards, you're switching things up to keep them engaged. I can see how that could be a game changer for things like homework battles or getting them to clean their rooms.
Exactly. It's about shifting from power struggles to working together and having respect for each other. And what's really cool is that these principles aren't just for shaping how other people behave. They can help us shape our own behavior too.
Wait, I can use animal training on myself? I mean,
You're already doing it in a
nah.
way.
Huh.
A lot of these ideas come from behavioral psychology, which is all about understanding and changing how people act. If you've ever set a goal for yourself and use rewards to stay on track, you've already used some of these principles.
Right, that makes sense. But how could I use these techniques more intentionally? Like if I wanted to break a bad habit or learn a new skill?
Let's say you want to start exercising more regularly. You wouldn't just jump into running a marathon.
Definitely not.
You might start small, like taking a walk around the block or doing a short online workout, and then you'd reward yourself for doing it maybe with a healthy snack or a relaxing bath.
So it's about using those baby steps, breaking down that big goal of exercising regularly into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Exactly. And by consistently rewarding those small wins, you are reinforcing the behavior and making it more likely you'll stick with it.
That's pretty empowering. It's like we have all these tools that we can use to make positive changes in our lives.
It is empowering, and what I love about Sutherland's approach is that it encourages us to see our relationships with others and even ourselves with understanding and curiosity instead of judgment and blame.
It's like she's giving us permission to be more playful and experimental with personal growth and relationships. That's definitely something I can get behind.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway from Sutherland's book?
I think it's the reminder that we have more influence than we think by understanding those basic principles of behavior and motivation. We can create positive changes in our own lives and the lives of people around us.
That's a great way to put it. It's realizing that we're all connected and that our actions, even the little ones, can shape the world around us.
So, to everyone listening, as you go about your day, I want to challenge you to look at your interactions in a new way. What behaviors are you accidentally encouraging? What could you change to bring out the behaviors you want to see more of?
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So go out there and think like an animal trainer. You might be surprised by the positive changes that happen in your own life and in the lives of the people you care about.
Until next time, keep diving deep.